How was this game not more popular? Welcome to Deep Thoughts While Gaming. I'm Chris Chappell. God is dead. That was the warning of 19th century German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. We live in an increasingly isolated, materialistic world. After all, who needs friends when you have a Switch? These are the ruins of a world left behind in the shock waves of the Age of Enlightenment that created a universe governed by physical laws, not symbolic divine order. But does human belief in myth, or lack thereof, affect material reality? Nietzsche feared that as humanity increasingly abandons its belief in the divine, the consequences would be dire, while science could give us wonders like the metaverse. In The Will to Power, Nietzsche wrote, "What I relate is the history of the next 2 centuries, the advent of nihilism." Nietzsche would not have been surprised by the rise of communism, Nazism, and nationalism in the 20th century, as humanity sought to find a new meaning in an age devoid of divine order, as a worker, an Aryan, a furry. Speaking of, today I'm playing 2006's furry simulator Okami, one of the last games produced for the PlayStation 2. Come to think of it, 2006 was a big year for furry simulators. You aren't playing as any old wolf. You play as the avatar of the Shinto sun goddess Amaterasu. Set in a fictional version of classical Japan called Nippon, Okami tells a story combining Japanese mythology and folklore. The story begins with a myth. An evil 8-headed dragon plagued a village, demanding a yearly sacrifice of a maiden, until a hero, aided by a white wolf, stood up and slew the beast. The game begins 100 years later. You quickly realize something is amiss in the land of Nippon. The world is shrouded in darkness, chaos, and nihilism. Creation itself seems to be withering away. People have lost faith in the divine, and the world is a lot less colorful for it. This is a society estranged from their basic belief system, left without a sense of meaning to their lives, until the same ancient evil from legend is awoken exactly because people failed to believe in the legends and myths handed down to them. Your battle against the evil that plagues the land serves as a retelling of the myth the people of the land of Nippon have either forgotten or failed to believe in. The goddess Amaterasu assumes the avatar of the white wolf from legend to once again do battle with the darkness. Yet most of the human characters in the game only see you as a plain white wolf. They don't recognize her spiritual nature. They're much too practical for that. Throughout your adventure, you restore not just the natural beauty of the world, but people's faith in the divine. Perhaps those things were never separate to begin with. Originally intended to be a photorealistic game, limitations on the PlayStation 2's graphics forced the developers at Clover Studio to reimagine the game in the art style of traditional Japanese woodblock carving, just like the best anime you've never heard of, Mononoke. Limitations, rather than stifling creativity, often proved to be the fertile ground for it, and the change in art style also led to the addition of the central game mechanic, the celestial brush. Most of your moveset is based around drawing and calligraphy. How does a wolf hold a brush? She doesn't. The wolf is the avatar of the goddess Amaterasu, who, like the player, exists outside the world of the game, but seeks to cleanse it from darkness. In typical Japanese video game fashion, the final boss is only introduced at the very end, but the big bad really pulling on the strings trope is broken by the nature of the villain. It's not a Sephiroth with complex motivations behind their world-destroying ambitions. In this epic tale of good and evil, Okami's main antagonist is revealed to be Yami, a fish in a fishbowl. There is no grand ambition driving Yami. It's a tiny creature flailing around in its limited environment, nihilism personified, or fishified, unable or unwilling to assign order and meaning to its existence, the perfect foil for the sun goddess Amaterasu. In the end, Yami and the darkness of nihilism he represents is only finally beaten back when the people of Nippon restore their faith in the divine order their ancestors believed in, offering up their prayers to Amaterasu, allowing her to transform to her most powerful form. But while praise for Okami was near universal, Even winning IGN's Game of the Year, sales were not, and Clover Studio folded as a result. Perhaps fittingly, the story of Okami ended as a victim of our own real-world nihilism. Like the people of Nippon, we ignored the warnings of our own cultural mythos. In the story of Genesis, Adam and Eve were tasked with ordering creation, but their transgression in the garden led to the disordering of creation. As Genesis 3:17 says, "Cursed is the ground because of you." But surely there's no truth to that. We live in the age of reason, of science. The myths of primitive people grasping in the darkness to explain the world around them don't have any bearing on our lives today. The thoughts in our heads don't affect the material world around us, surely. Our lack of faith isn't covering the world in blackness. Absolute materialism has fundamentally changed how people look at the world and the impact of story and myth. A South Korean traditional papermaker once said to me, "Your state of mind is important when crafting the paper. If your heart isn't pure, selfishness could seep in." Scientifically proved that paper made without selfishness is different from any other kind of paper. Materialistically, there would be no difference. So why go through the effort of hand-making paper with a so-called pure heart and mind? Why not just build the cheapest, most exploitative system imaginable to crank out reams of paper for maximum profit? And there you find a system not too different from the world we live in. Children in the Congo slave in the cobalt mines. Suicide nets at Foxconn factories ensure the workers keep on task without even death as an escape. Also, we can have cheaper switches. Maybe selfishness does warp creation. The scientific revolution changed how we understand truth. Truth was a big topic for ancient Greek philosophers. Aristotle said there were many ways to know truth. One was episteme, demonstrable truth. 2 + 2 = 4. Don't believe it? Well, here are 2 apples and here are 2 more, and will you look at that? 4 apples. This is the basis of scientific understanding. But there were other ways to know something. There was also techne, which is where we get our word for technique and technology. The way you know how to drive a car is different from how you know 2 + 2 = 4. You don't need to know anything about how an internal combustion engine works to drive. Often it doesn't even rise to the level of conscious thought. But Aristotle also talked about doxa, the way things appear or seem, which is where we get the dox in orthodox, which means right or true opinion. This is on display in every crime procedural on TV. A witness gives his testimony, the lawyer says things seem this way, but could they be this other way? And the jury acquits. For Aristotle, history belonged to doxa, not episteme. History was the story of a people, not an objective truth. But things changed during the scientific revolution. Imagine, if you will, you're dropped off naked in the woods and given one instruction: make Wi-Fi. Good luck! The discovery that there are laws to the natural world was rightfully a huge revelation. And that's when people began trying to make a science out of everything. Some began talking about political science. Politics aren't a science. Karl Marx came up with historical materialism, that there was a law of development of human history, the pinnacle of which just so happened to be his ideology. Fancy that. But people's understanding of truth had changed. The only way something could be true is if it belonged to episteme. Myths, stories, religion, none of that was real anymore. Just superstitious beliefs of people who didn't have science. But much of human experience exists in doxa. 2 + 2 = 4 isn't going to help you if your marriage is falling apart. When people inevitably realized science did not provide all the answers, rather than go back to ancient ways of thought, it began the advent of postmodernism. There was no way to know if anything is true. Or truth became completely subjective, relative only to your lived experiences. It was the age of nihilism that Nietzsche foresaw. And the impact of belief, or lack thereof, on the material world is becoming clear. Cursed is the ground because of you. Maybe we all need to realize that there might be more to that plain white wolf than meets the eye. Thank you for watching Deep Thoughts While Gaming. If you want to learn more about biblical giants and why Nicolas Cage is one of them, check out this video. I think about Rome and the Nephilim every day in Caesar 3.